So, boys, I feel like we've been in this scenario. I feel like this whole week has been like some serious deja vu that I wasn't ready to be deja vuing, because when we were doing this last year, we were all saying, I hope it's a long time before we have to deal with this again. But apparently nature and the river had other plans.
Well, I was going through all the footage yesterday from this year, and it's amazing how, like you said, deja vu, but it's amazing how you say, well, the next couple of days that we'll be here, I'm going to go shoot this and get this and get this and shoot this, and you think, I just shot that.
Yeah.
But it was a year ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like we're going through the same scenario with the river.
Yeah, well, like we all know this, and for those of y'all listening, when the river starts coming up, like we're talking about, it gets to a certain point where we can't access the Mississippi portion of Cottonmouth without using a boat. And
we get cut off. There's some dips and dives up there in the north part of Mississippi, and water comes in there at a certain level, and you can't get through there without a boat.
Yeah, and you probably could get through there at some of those levels if you absolutely had to, but it's easier to use a boat at that point.
Yeah.
And when that happened, we kind of we knew it was getting close. We'd gone through there on the road the day before, and we were like, let's check that spot one more time. We got to it, couldn't cross it. We're like, well, we're boating now.
I rode off in there, put the front tires in, and it kept going. And I was like, oh, put it in reverse.
The key to using a boat, though,
Terry.
is using the boat is one thing, is getting there. But the other thing is, you could probably get there on a Polaris, but then you're going through all the deer that have been misplaced and displaced.
Yeah.
And before you know it, you got deer scattered everywhere. So going by boat gets us into a central location where literally you don't bump any deer or don't bother any deer or pressure any deer. So I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But it is pretty frustrating.
Well, that's the whole point of why I brought that up is when we discovered that, and then we still needed to go look, because that's when we were duck hunting still. Me and Jordan were going to go look at some spots for the last morning that those ceasefire guys were going to be here. We got in that boat, and we're riding across, cutting through, and I looked at Jordan. I said, this seems way too familiar.
Yeah.
Like I was not ready to be doing this again.
Well, the first time you and I did it, Lake, Jordan wasn't working here yet. It was in 2015, if you remember, when a flood came, and you and I were riding around picking up double bull blinds off of our platforms and some of our food plots that now look like lakes, big ponds. And it was, growing up on the water, which we've all been on water as young men and young boys, but growing up on the water and watching what this river does and the effect that it has, and now it's becoming almost an annual event.
Seems like it.
Me and a good friend of ours yesterday were talking, Will Walker, and it's, if you really look at, you can't put any one finger on how and what it causes, and a lot of people that doesn't live in the Mississippi Delta region don't understand. But the heater just kicked on.
Pause.
Must be cold outside.
Okay. Back good. Oh, Troy was talking when I had to go. The AC cut on. The heater cut on.
The river itself. I was talking with a good friend of ours, Will Walker, yesterday, who basically grew up on the river, so to speak, and even talking to people that own properties, and it's kind of like, reminds me of 12, 15 years ago when everybody had a million assumptions on why we don't have ducks. The ducks are stopping up north, and everybody had assumptions of what was going on, and the assumptions of the river, what's causing the river to do this. And you look back in history, back in the 20s and 30s, it's a cycle, but a lot has changed. Farming practices, in my opinion, are one of the big factors in it. Take, for instance, I know y'all have probably noticed it when we're driving on the main highway to go around, because now we got to come in from the north end of the property and look at those ditches that they just redug again. They're doing that every year because they do silt in a little bit. But some of the places we drive by, gosh, you used to drive around here and there were ducks in the ditches, ducks in the fields, and water sitting in the corner of every agricultural field. That don't happen anymore from here to Minnesota. With zero grade and understanding it, the water, it just doesn't sit anymore. So, and where does it go? It drains from the fields to the streams to the rivers to the main river. And
the Mississippi River drains 60% of North America.
Yeah.
Or the United States.
It's a lot of water, man. And
60%.
A lot of water.
Comes right through here.
And back in the day, out of that 60%, 40 of it stayed in fields and ponds and rivers and smaller rivers and streams. And
yeah, it all eventually came down through here, but it was a gradual effect.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of it was absorbed, too. And, a lot of it sat in places. And I remember riding around in the Delta, which I didn't grow up here, but I had some friends that lived here, and we swapped out duck hunting trips. They would come down to Louisiana to shoot pintails, and I'd come up here to shoot greenheads.
Yeah.
One thing that I thought was interesting is I was talking to Brad about this, and Brad has this I don't know it's just a document, statistics or whatever, of flood dates during hunting, that flood stage during hunting season since the year going back to the year 1915.
Yeah.
And the cycles of it were interesting because kind of, I think everyone that hunts along the river, inside the levee, anywhere in there, is, especially after last year with how long the water stayed up, is just kind of gun shy, and it's happened so often. It seems like people are starting to wonder, like, is this the new normal? Is this what we're going to have to deal with every year? But you look at this thing that Brad sent me, and you have like 1915, 1916 flood stage. Then you had like a 3-year break. Then it came back up in 1919. Then you had another 3-year break, 1923, 1926, 1929. 1931, 1936, and then after the 1936 flood, there was not a high river during hunting season until 1973.
Yeah, it all.
Well, then it was like so, but then you have like these big gaps. There's like 1973, and then it doesn't do it again until 1990.
Yeah, I mean, under a normal year, the river comes up just about every year, but it's usually March, April.
Yeah,
I looked at the last 100 years crest last night. And I saw what you're talking about, and then it'd go 5 or 6 years. It'd be, April, May when it crests.
Yeah, and all that was based on winter water.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and runoff.
Because even now, like, so you get up to like closer times, like 1990, it hit flood stage during hunting season. 1990, 91. Then it didn't happen again in 2004, 2005.
Yeah.
And then since 2004, 2005, didn't happen until 2015. And 2015 was the first year that I saw it with my own eyes.
Yeah.
But then it's happened 2015, 2016, and then last year and this year.
Well, we did not have a high river 2016.
Well, the 2015, 2016 season.
Yeah, well, that's when it came big flood.
Not the 2016, 2017.
Yeah.
But yeah.
My first year here, we went throughout the season without having any water.
Yeah.
2011 was a huge flood here, but it wasn't during hunting season. But
Yeah.
the thing you got to remember too is now, take like last year around here, especially here with all the controversy that's going on about the pumps and everything that's happened in the Delta. You had the perfect storm. You had the river up because of rains early in the season, which we all get, the October, November rains. And then you had the river flooding on the other side. So everybody that was in the protective side of the levee system were getting all the rains. The river was up on outside the protective levee system, and the water had nowhere to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
at Still Bayou, they got that gate system they
Right.
close once the river gets to a
Right.
certain height, and then they can't open it till the river goes under that.
Right.
So all that backwater just backs up.
And if you think about it, back in the day, we still had the rains. And I know the history of it, but you still had rain, you still had all that going. But the water didn't flow like it does now right down to the river because of so much good drainage.
Mm-hmm.
My honest opinion, that's again, it's opinion. Opinions are like elbows. Everybody's got two of them. But now it's, you used to wait for the springtime floods, but now those springtime floods are starting. You're still getting them, but you already have a flood because of wintertime runoff.
Yeah.
It's I don't know. I don't think we'll ever see it in our day or time if it's a true spot-on reason why. I'm most sure it's a multitude of things. So
There's one thing I've learned. There's always, you may have like one big factor,
Yeah.
but there's always several factors.
That goes with anything in nature.
Yeah. There's never like one thing where you can go, that's it. There's always.
It's like growing a big deer. There's not one thing you can do to make that happen.
Yeah. There's like
Let
key
him get
things.
old.
Yeah. Key
well,
factors.
and you look at those dates that you were just talking about. What kind of levee system do we have that been? that back then.
The levee system didn't get finished till I think 1940 something.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean they started on it in the early 19 teens, I think,
something
or 20s.
like that, yeah. I'd have
And
to go.
it changed a bunch while they were doing it. The river, they tried rerouting this and rerouting that, and I can imagine what that was like.
Yeah.
I'd have to go do some serious research before I started trying to spit out facts on that. I just don't know that, I don't know enough about it.
Well, it's like Giles Island. That the original river went all the way around that place.
Yeah.
I think it was 1942 they cut it in half to make the river flow straighter. I mean, you think about that, all affects the drainage.
Yeah. You always, and this is just like, this isn't me saying any of this is fact. This is just like how my mind works, which is a scary thing to let people see sometimes. But you're like, at some point, and I know these, the people that handle that, the Corps of Engineers and all that, that's what they do. Their minds work that way. Mine doesn't. But I'm like, man, that is a powerful, powerful thing that you're manipulating.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's crazy how they've done it. It really is.
And to some degree, and I get it. Like I said, this is just me thinking, but like part of me is like, it was intended to be this way. You know what I mean? And you can't, but I don't know.
Well, for them, everything was trial and error, and they were doing the best that they know how at the time because, in all honesty, they were learning as they went. They didn't know what that water was going to do.
Yeah.
From what I've read and everything, the whole reason behind the levee systems and everything was to create economy.
Oh yeah,
it was 100%.
Yeah, that's where
move stuff downriver.
Go look at pictures.
Started with the logs.
Go look at the pictures of the delta before the levee system.
Yes.
Before all the agriculture.
That's why they called it a delta. Yeah.
The landscape of the United States has changed
drastically.
Yeah.
Drastically.
And it's still changing. We're seeing that now.
Oh yeah, and it always will, as long as humans inhabit it. That's just what humans do.
Yep.
Like I said, and it did. But to revert back to the original point, as we sit here at the camp house at Cottonmouth, with one more afternoon to hunt before this high river shuts the season down, because
one last hoorah.
Well, right now Arkansas is the only state open. Everything else is closed.
Yeah. Well, Mississippi closes today too.
But yeah,
they both close once the Greenville gauge hits 48 feet.
Yeah, I was hoping. It's seriously, it's funny because, when we left here last year, when we got into the summertime or when we got into turkey season, I kind of, especially when we're turkey hunting or whatever, deer season kind of falls, goes to the back of my head, and I just don't think about it. But as I sit here, I feel like it was just yesterday that you and me and all of us went and sat on the Arkansas field and watched all those deer with the high water last year. So
January the 28th.
All of them, there were a bunch of them had already shed half their rack, and we were like, this is not worth it. These deer are stressed. Let's go home.
Yeah. Last year, this year's a little different because we've known the season was going to close now for 2 weeks. They hadn't really flip-flopped on the gauges at all.
Yeah.
Last year we were within a 6-inch rise of getting cut off for like 3 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
It was
we just didn't know.
Daily.
Yeah. We're like, we could be here. Because we had to cancel on Levi.
Yeah.
Levi was supposed to come hunting last year, and we were like, dude.
They're supposed to close the season next week. And then the next week gets here, and they kept it open.
We're like, man, you can come down here, but we're just letting you know you could show up, and they shut the season down. We don't know.
Yeah.
And I had to cancel. Muscadine Bloodline was supposed to be here next week.
Yeah.
But it's a good thing that they didn't, because all they'd be able to do is float around the boat, and we could go, there used to be deer right there. That right there, used to be deer right there too. Enjoy your time at Cottonmouth.
I have been hunting on the Mississippi River now for 6 or 7 years, off and on. And it is a place I have really grown. It's special. It's a special hunting environment on the river. But it can be mean to you.
Yeah.
Bad mean. It's a feast or famine deal. It's the greatest thing ever. Then when it turns on you, it's get out.
Yeah. It's I always have to remind myself that because you can sit here and again after last year, because last year was so bad because the water was up for so long, and you can sit there and you can hope, everyone did, you can sit there and hope that river doesn't come up again. But in reality, those hopes, That's all they are.
You have no
Like
you
there's
have no
the-
control.
all, I
on
mean,
this.
it's there's no, like, you can hope as hard as you want to. If that river wants to come up, it's going to. There's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing. It doesn't care. That river don't have any emotion. It's just going to do what it's going to do, and you have to work around it best you can.
But I will say this: the last few days, we've struggled all year trying to find deer.
Yeah.
Last few days has been awesome.
It's been the best that we've had, really.
Yeah. And it's a factor because of water. Water, we're not hunting deer on a 10-acre piece of land, but it's narrowed them down from 1,500, and for instance, Arkansas, where we've been hunting, is 1,800 acres up there, and it's
Right.
narrowed them down to about 500 acres.
Yeah.
So it's made it a little bit easier. We're bow hunting, that's still hard. But
Yeah. And it's made travel habits that weren't there before.
yeah.
Like case in point, and we can go into this more, but like now the place that we've been hunting the past 2 days, there's a slough there now.
Yeah, it wasn't water there 3 days ago.
It's not like extremely influencing their travel, but it's influencing it a little bit. Some of those deer would walk through that slough, but some of them are walking down the edge of it. So it's changing every day. It's changing.
Trying to bow hunt when the water comes up, it's pretty fun.
Yeah.
I don't lie about that. It's fun.
Yeah.
You're seeing different deer every day, and you can kind of figure them out because they're going to be changing going down through here once the water gets to a certain level, and it's fun. I really enjoy it. But
Yeah.
at the same
It
time,
lets you see a lot of deer you didn't know you had, and
Exactly.
it also lets
That's-
you kind of
yeah.
kind of gives you a census on what's there, and you just hope and pray that we don't have this type of river we had last year, and it stays for so long that these deer, once the water goes down, we all know they go right back to where they came from. But it's that river's she's mighty, and it changes a lot of things. And I think one of the great things that we have, even though we look at it as the whole river as a negative, there's a positive there. I can only imagine. I was thinking yesterday, sitting in a tree, here it is, 2 years of fresh new water and nutrients and everything coming to this ground. And if that water is to go down, the end of May, 1st of June, which we pray for, can you imagine what's going to grow here?
oh, we're
Yeah.
going to have silly growth this year. I mean, our deer numbers are down, which we've addressed this. It's turned out to be a positive thing.
In some ways, yeah.
Yeah,
Found a
and-
silver lining.
And if we can get a good river year, which we're talking about a low river, where the deer can get all the nutrients they need, we're going to have some studs running around here.
Which, here's another thing I thought of, and I say this after talking about the levee system and wondering what it would have been like without it, but it makes me think, because there's, talking about the river being like it was last summer, definitely taking some of our numbers away, whether or not it killed all those deer, whether or not some of them left and just didn't come back. I'm sure y'all know, we've all heard the term, we've all talked about it, a carrying capacity.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things I can remember learning at Mississippi State in ecology class. Like every ecosystem, every property has a carrying capacity. And if it maximizes that carrying capacity, nature will find a way to lower it back down.
Yeah.
To a healthy state. And so I was like, I wonder if nature's going, whoop,
and break that down even more. Our place here, different areas of the place have different carrying capacities.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's very night and day. Arkansas is probably one of my favorite places to hunt because it carries a lot of deer. There's a lot of
Yeah.
good browse up there, a lot of good bedding. And Louisiana, for instance, is a lot of cottonwood plantations and
Yeah.
low land, and it doesn't carry as many deer.
Yeah, comparing those two together is probably one of the best, like, compare and contrast that you can have, especially since they bump up right next to each other.
Mm-hmm.
But it's almost a night and day difference when you look at the two and the way the concentration of deer from one compared to the other.
Yep.
Well, I've always said this about here, in Louisiana, if you look at it on the map the way it lays, where Mississippi and Arkansas lay, Louisiana is kind of the piece of Cottonmouth that the deer pass through.
It's the runway.
They don't stay a lot. Don't get me wrong, there's some good cover in there, especially in those cottonwoods early in the season. The deer like to bed up in there, but
Early season is fantastic.
it is. But when late season comes, it's just to and fro through there, and which is not a bad thing. Kind of gives you a buffer zone of being able to get where you need to be. So I'm there again right now. It's probably 15 foot of water in 95% of Louisiana.
Yeah.
You
When
are
we get high
correct.
water, Louisiana's the first one to go.
It's low land,
Yeah.
It's fertile.
Very fertile.
Very fertile.
Best food plots on this place grow in Louisiana.
Yes,
But
they do.
also the first food plots we lose happen in Louisiana.
Exactly. But that's a very good scenario on how your carrying capacity
But although
changes.
it sounds like we're talking about gloom and doom, we ain't done.
No. That's just, we sit there. Well,
We're going hunting next week.
Oh yeah, but somewhere else. I sit here with the
running for the hills, boys.
take it to the high ground, and I'm still look. I ain't give up on this afternoon.
No,
We've
y'all will be in the deer.
We did, man. We've been seeing. We saw. Let's talk about these hunts.
Yeah.
And first afternoon, me and Lake, and we sat in a ground blind. We expected to have some deer come in ranged. That's why we went there. But the main thing was to go looking. Watch and see if we get anything patterned. And boy, did we.
Mm-hmm.
We were sitting there afternoon, hadn't seen much. About 5:20, here they came, and they were about 15 deer all in a wad because they're all bedding together right now. And one gets up walking, they all come.
It looked uncharacteristic of what you should see this time of year, unless you're having high water.
Yeah. But we saw a good buck that afternoon and kind of pinpointed where they were moving through there and then moved in on them. Well, we watched one more day because we didn't have a wind to get in there on them.
Right. Yeah, we kind of knew where we wanted to be, but we couldn't go there.
And to break this area down, we're in a big hardwood flat.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's some sloughs and stuff in there, but it's mostly just wide open hardwoods.
Yeah.
You can see 300 yards through the woods.
Really open because of last year's flood.
Yep.
Usually in there, the dewberries are 5-6 foot tall, and there is some sort of cover to the deer, and they tend to travel in there a little bit different. But doing what y'all would do was key.
If it wasn't that open in there, we've seen some deer, but we wouldn't have seen all that we have seen.
Yeah.
Just because the visibility is so open right now.
So we watched these deer for 2 afternoons in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Had a shooter come in too dark. I couldn't even see my pins, and you couldn't hardly see him on camera. So we watched them. You can see them coming, and they're just taking their time browsing. There is still dewberry in there, and that's what they're coming in there for.
Right.
We thought they were coming in there to eat pecans.
Yeah.
But turns out they're on browse.
Yeah. And I didn't realize that until we had some of those deer get. Because I still assumed it was like pecans. But then every deer that we've seen close up, I've been watching what they're doing. It's like dewberries.
Those 8 to 10 days that we had of 70-degree temperatures right after Christmas, between Christmas and New Year's
really
in that
helped.
area, the dewberry just
Yeah.
went crazy.
So we watched these deer for 2 days, kind of narrowed them down within 100-yard range, wouldn't you say, Lake?
Yeah.
And went in there with our climbers and climbed up where we thought the X would be. And 4 o'clock, here come a doe with 2 bucks behind her. One really, really nice 3-year-old 8-point. Got some major potential.
Yeah.
And
it'd be one of those, like if he happened to like run a doe in like quick like.
Oh, you'd make a mistake on him real fast.
Because rack wise, he's there.
Oh,
It's me and you both had to go. Is that deer 4? No. Crap.
When I looked at him with my naked eye, I was like, golly, that's a big old deer.
He's
then
gorgeous.
I pulled a binocular, like, okay, he looks a little young.
Yeah.
Gonna let him see what he'll do in a year.
Because I don't know if you, but me filming you, I want like very big part of me wanted to go kill him. He's standing there like 15 yards.
Don't get me wrong, I wanted to bad, but doing what we're doing here, trying to grow mature bucks, that's what our goal is.
Right.
And he needs another year. But them suckers came 15 yards, just browsing the whole way. The doe let them in there. She was on them dewberries on that little ridge, and he was right there. I mean, he was at 10 yards at one point. I was like, golly, why can't you be a little older?
Yeah, it was tempting.
But, man, thought we were on X then. And then later on, the deer started really moving, and they were all 75 yards and had a big 8-point, like 130-inch, at least 8-point.
He was real cool. His tines, everything kind of bent in, almost touching each other.
Yeah, but he's a big 4 or 5-year-old buck, just a big hoss. And he got out there at 75 yards browsing, and another little 10-point came up. We've seen a bunch this year.
Yeah.
They kind of squared off at each other, and I was like, man, he may come to a call. So I called and snort-wheezed at him, and he looked, and he never did see what he wanted to come look at. So
we had a big blowdown behind us, but like as I was sitting there, I was like, I think a big key, like we were talking about, I think those woods were just so open.
Oh, yeah.
That play, I mean, it was worth trying definitely because we had that blowdown right there.
Yeah,
but I think it was. He was just like, I should be able to see over there. But you had to try at that point. It was,
And You and Brad hunted that afternoon, had an interesting hunt too, didn't you, Troy?
Yeah. Same thing where we were as a place stand we hung last week in preparation of this water coming up. And it's right at the head of a slough. And we knew with that water coming up that it was going to keep pushing it up that slough. So we kind of backed the stand up and hunted it the first afternoon and watched a good many deer come through there. But no shooters. And in the afternoon that we did hunt it, the water had come up about, since we hung the stand, probably 2-3 feet. And those deer, you would think, and I noticed this again yesterday because I hunted that same stand again yesterday after Brad left. You would think that those deer would just follow the edge, go around the water, but they stay on that main trail. And as of yesterday, they were walking into that water pretty much belly deep, and they still taking that same trail.
Swamp deer.
And you would think, man, just go 20 yards to your left and go around the water, but no, they go right through it. But that afternoon we were sitting there and we saw a lot of deer. And when I say a lot of deer, I think all together we saw 18 deer, which is a lot.
That's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. And small bucks, young bucks, and I looked up and I could see this dark blob, just this dark object coming through the woods right down the edge of a cut timber, old cut line. And I zoomed in on him and I'm like, holy smokes. All I could see is his basis because he had his head down, but I could see how wide his chest was, and just immediately can tell it was an old deer, mature. And my first thought when I saw him was Brutus. I just gave him a name, Brutus. I've got that crazy. And there's another deer in there that I named the other day called Popeye because one of his eyes have popped out from fighting, it looks like. But anyway, this big deer comes in there and he's coming right to us. And I'll get Brad's attention, and I was like, Brad, this deer's going to walk right to us. It's going to be perfect because the first 5 or 6 bucks skirted us about 80 yards, staying right down the edge of the woods. And this deer didn't even think about taking that direction, just coming right to us. And he gets in this one little thicket, and there's a little bit of water there. And I'm thinking, once he crosses that water, it's a done deal. Well, no sooner I think that, I look, and here comes 3 does from the left and cross right in front of him. And, of course, he's going to follow them, even though the rut's long over. You can tell, I know you guys have seen this, where you watch a buck, he'll stand there and look at where he wants to go, but look at where everybody else is going, and he's thinking, do I go there or do I do this? And they changed his mind. He wound up following them, but deer was at, I don't know, all honesty, Brad had ranged a spot where the first few deer had went through was 52 yards, which is a makeable shot for today's technology and the equipment that we have and the practice that we all do. But anyway, this deer came and he was coming straight to that. Well, the does walked right by that spot. And him, instead of going right down that trail, he went about 10 feet, a little bit past that. And when Brad shot, he kind of whiffed right under him.
Happens.
You got to try, though. There's hope.
And it's always fun because, us as cameramen, when you filming that kind of stuff, you see exactly where it goes to the viewfinder. It's like, phew, boom. And, it hit the ground, and it almost sounded like it may have hit something, but I pan back to Brad, and he's like, what happened? I said, you shot low. No way. And once he looked at it, and he went and ranged it. He ranged it. He's like, it makes sense. He said he was about 6 or 8 feet past where I thought he should have been.
It makes a lot of difference at that distance.
It does, but man, he was a toad of a 7-point, just a big old deer, tired, wore out from the rut, and a deer we hadn't seen all season. I've never seen him. I don't think, Jordan, you may have seen a picture of him. I don't remember seeing him.
Well, that's one thing that one point I wanted to bring up is, when we have like the high water like we have now, like it's funny to me, and then it's like a good reminder that however good you think you are, you're not. Because it happens every time. We're like, where'd these bucks come from? Yeah. Because I think out of all the shooters that I've seen since I've been filming you these past few days, I don't think I recognized any of them. Yeah. And I'm like, huh. They didn't just pop out of the ground.
Yeah, I went yesterday afternoon, saw a buck that I recognized from the day that Brad and I hunted in there. He's an 8-point with both his 3s broke off, and he walked the same trail, did the exact same thing. And yesterday I saw 8 different bucks, none of them big, just young deer, but out of the 8, only one I recognized.
Mm-hmm. And yesterday, me and Lake moved in where we saw that 8-point, another 40 yards, trying to get it in bow range if he did the same thing again.
Yeah.
The 10-point that he squared off with showed up, and he was at 10 yards for 10 minutes.
Is that the 10-point you and I called up?
Yeah, we've seen him, I think, 4 or 5 times this year. And
that's the same deer that Jimmy had on him, right?
Exactly.
With his crossbow when he fell out the back of the blind.
That's one of the first good rack deer we had on camera this year. And he's still hanging out within 400 yards where we first saw him.
Yeah,
So.
I mean, if you wanted to shoot him, you could.
Oh, gosh. You can tell he's young because he is dumb.
Yeah, and believe me, like I said, same thing. I had like the same, well, not as like that 8-point that was young. He was pretty. The 10-point, I was like, I kind of want Jordan to kill him. But then I was like, we shouldn't.
Yeah.
But
if we get a good river like we're talking about, he'll be a giant.
Yeah, so.
Wait a minute, Jordan. You said young. How old are you?
30. Didn't be 30.
How old are you, Lake?
20, fitting to be 28.
And I'm 54. So you said young and dumb?
Yeah, I'm young and dumb.
No, you're not. Lake's the youngest one here.
Yeah.
I ain't ever going to argue that I'm not dumb.
But you're happy.
You got me pegged.
Huh? Like Brad says, he's dumb, but he's happy.
I'm reaching maturity.
Lake's not dumb.
Yeah,
but
a little bit.
Anyways, we was on the X yesterday. Had deer come within bow range, just about every one of them. So hopefully today the right one come through there.
Yeah. Well, as you know, the water's right now. The river's kind of flattened out.
Yeah, it's going.
It's not coming up as fast as it has been.
We talk about the season shutting down. I mean, it closes today or tonight or in the morning, midnight, whenever it closes. But
we can hunt till midnight.
Yeah,
if you want to.
You just can't shoot because shooting hours are up.
That's one of the permissions when they have high water. You just kind of do what you got to do.
But yeah, the river's only supposed to rise according to the predictions another like foot, and then it's supposed to start falling. But it's gonna be sitting there at that kind of worry stage for about 5 or 6 days. So pray no rain hits the Midwest.
Well, if it'll just go down as fast as it came up,
that'd be fine.
Number one, it won't hurt the food plots that it's already affected, which it will to a point. But I still think, as far as the turnips and the brassicas that we have, the turnip bulbs will still be in the ground, so the deer will have some food when the water does go down.
Because that's what we're concerned about at this point. Because whether or not the water shot right back down after today, our season at Cottonmouth is done.
Yeah,
I'm worried about the water going down quick for the sake of the deer.
That's right.
We need to get these deer unstressed.
Well, have y'all noticed in the woods all the food that has been coming up, the hen bed and just all the stuff that's growing green on the ground that the deer are eating outside of dewberry?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of. We noticed that yesterday, and Brad and I were looking at that about 3 days ago, just watching them go through there and go to those little, you'd have little dandelion bush or something. They just walk right to it and eat every green leaf off of it and go to the next one.
Yeah. So there's hope. There's always hope. We just hope this river treats us good.
Yeah. Hope whatever spot Brad rounds us up to hunting the hills next week bids us well.
So we're done at Cottonmouth, but we're not done hunting.
No, we got a little bit left in us.
Do y'all know how quick turkey season's going to get here?
Fast.
Not quick enough.
We leave here March the 6th, which is less than 2 months. Month and a half.
Holler. I'm ready for it.
Me too.
Ready for it.
Change of pace.
But in between that, we do have a kickstart, which is the NWTF convention. That's to me, that's kind of like the opening of the dove season down here.
Yeah.
Kicks off the hunting season.
Yeah, kind of starts. Turkey season's right around the corner.
I'm always ready for turkey season, just because that's probably my favorite thing to do. But
yes,
once I go to Nashville and hang out up there all weekend, I'm really ready for it.
Your turkey yips in your sleep.
Yeah.
Let's do one thing before we wrap this episode up. We've got, like I always say, we answer questions on here if folks send them in.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the times, honestly, folks send in stuff all the time, but it's just kind of like general topics they want us to talk about. Mm-hmm. Not as much like just direct questions, but this time we have some. We had a fella ask us, like, if you're hunting, let's say anywhere, the spot that you hunted with Brad, Troy, the spot we've been hunting, but take the high water out of the equation. Just, you're hunting and a deer goes to blowing. It gets downwindy, whatever. Deer goes to blowing, but not a doe. I see the smirk on your face. Not a doe that you can shoot, Jordan. You can't shoot this deer, but the deer goes to blowing in that area, blows everything out. You don't kill anything that evening, so on and so forth. How long do you think that stand is kind of ex-nade.
I go right back in there the very next day.
Jordan?
Well, I'm going to tell you what I do. You know what I do when a deer starts blowing.
Yeah.
If I can't shoot it, I start blowing back at it.
Yeah, I've seen you do that.
And that usually calms them down. Or doesn't calm them down, but gets them out of there without screwing everything up as bad.
Sometimes.
Sometimes it don't, but it works quite a bit. Troy, you seen me do it too. But
Yeah, I have.
I think we've all seen you do it.
I've seen you do it.
What is he doing?
it works.
Sometimes.
This is my honest opinion on deer blowing. We can't recognize it because we're not a deer. But I feel like when one deer is blowing, other deer know the intensity of what they're doing. Whether
I agree with that.
Whether it's they see something that's danger. Because, I mean, think about it. During the rut, goodness gracious, does blowing at bucks all the time that aggravate the living daylights out of them. And then, you know, right now with the water being up, and especially this year, we've all agreed that, especially in Arkansas, we have seen a running ton of coyotes, and we think that's put a lot of pressure on our deer. The other afternoon, Brad and I were sitting in a tree, and we had 4 different deer out in front of us in 4 different directions, upwind from us, not downwind, upwind from us, just start blowing. Squirrels were barking, so in my mind, I'm thinking there must be a coyote coming through that thicket.
Yeah.
And the deer blew for, I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes, and then boom, everything calmed down. And there were deer standing there by us while these deer were blue. The first time that the one deer blew, there was 3 different deer standing by us, and all 3 of them turned and looked up. The deer blew again, blew again, blew again. And they all went back to feeding, like nothing ever happened.
Yeah, I've seen that before. Where I mean, like I was actually filming Brad in the Mississippi here at Cottonmouth, and we heard a deer blowing, and Brad was like, first off it was like faint, and Brad was like, "Is that a deer?" I was like, "Yeah," and he's like, "Well, no way she's smelling us. She was upwind, you know." And the blowing kept getting closer and closer and closer, and finally we could see movement. It was a doe, kind of like doing that. Kind of, you know how they do? It's like that high step run they do. And she was doing that behind a bobcat.
Yeah.
And the bobcat was running in front of her. And she was going through the whole woods. She was standing about 10 yards behind it, blowing the whole way.
Making sure everybody knows where that bobcat
is. And the whole
is.
time, the first time she did it, we had like 3 or 4 deer out in the food plot. Like they looked, but then they just chilled back out and went back to eating.
Yep. But to answer this guy's question or this lady's question, I don't know. But I mean, it really depends on the situation too. I mean, if the deer are coming downwind of you, you might want to think about moving your setup back a little bit so you don't get smelled again or spooked again or whatever. But
one thing about this question in particular is they asked, like, kind of like what we were talking about. They were like, what if, you know, the deer's looking at you or the deer gets downwind of you and blows?
You get busted and they blow at
you. Or they were like, if you're just hunting there and a deer kind of close by starts blowing. If that happens, I'm not worried about it. You know, I mean, like deer are going to blow. They're especially like down here where they're kind of spooky anyway. I don't know where this guy's from, but deer are going to blow.
I mean, if it's the deer you're trying to hunt that spooks from you,
that's the problem.
Yeah, he may not come back. Yeah. But if the wind's good and you got confidence in the spot, go.
Yeah.
That's bottom line, my opinion on it.
Yeah, even if like you know,
if chances are the one deer you might be hunting may not have even been in that area to hear that deer blowing.
Yeah.
Well, you know, sometimes we've all seen it. Sometimes there's a buck that you are hunting, and a doe blows and runs, and he sees her run off, and he runs too. The buck don't know what happened. He just sees the other deer running. So I mean, like kind of if you're consistently having deer get downwind of you, think about adjusting your stand.
Yeah.
But if it
deer do not have the same thought process we do. All they know is danger.
Yeah.
Or not danger. You know.
Yeah.
Well, they got 3 factors in their life: eat, breed, and survive.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I've watched them in Canada hunt those cut lines, and I've watched does and young bucks come through and catch your wind and blow on that crazy. And then you watch a mature buck; he'll come in and hit your scent trail and just back up and never say a word.
Yeah.
You know, if again, like you said on the question, Lake, I think you answered it great. If you're consistently getting busted in that area, you need to do something different. It's not what the deer are doing; it's what you're doing. Change your stand location. Don't hunt it on a certain wind, or just, you know, sometimes moving 20 yards one way or the other makes all the difference in the world. Because the deer are a creature of habit; they're going to want to keep coming through there. That's their home. What they do. It's kind of like me or you walking in a house and smelling some rank perfume. You're like, man, my wife must have got that free or something today.
And the same goes for turkeys too. I'm not afraid. If I booger one, I'm not afraid to go right back in there the next day or the day after.
Yeah, no, a lot of times I think.
I don't think a turkey can go 24 hours without getting spooked by something.
Yeah, well, like kind of turkeys or deer.
They wake up
same.
spooked.
I think one of the things that hinders hunters a lot of times is kind of, and you kind of highlighted it, is they do not think like we think.
Yeah.
No.
You know. Now, I mean, if you call in a turkey and miss him, 2-3 times, then yeah, that's probably you're probably gonna have a hard time yelping him back in. But
Only critters I've seen spooking them make a huge difference in being able to go back that day and find them in that same area and kill them is elk.
Yeah, because they run
you
so
spook
far.
an elk, that joke will run to the next state.
He could.
If he's got the opportunity. And usually when you spook, especially if he's by himself, but if you hunt him during the rut, you usually, a bull and a bunch of cows. And if you spook a cow, everybody's gone.
Sayonara, yeah. Last question that we got is, so this guy hunts out of a climber a lot. And he said he used to wear his harness when it was convenient until he didn't go into detail, but it says one time he was wearing his harness and it bailed him out of an almost bad situation. So now he always wears it, which is a good thing. Always wear your harness. So he was asking, like, when in a climber, how you position your safety harness. I guess, like, not the harness itself, but like the tether to the tree, because it gets in his way. I mean, and at this point, I guess after his almost accident in the tree, he's not going to not wear it. But apparently, it sounds like he says he likes to face the tree when he hunts.
That's what I was thinking. If it's getting in his way, he's facing the tree.
Which, now, I do that when I'm filming, but I do not do that when I'm hunting.
Yeah.
Typically.
And it's just one of them deals. It's better to have it on and not,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
figure out the inconvenience factor in that deal and just push it over to one side, or the main thing is keeping it up high enough in case something does happen that you don't fall a long ways before it stops you.
The best, I mean, I guess referring to that, the best thing I could give him is, like, consider not doing the face in the tree thing, because that kind of takes care of that.
Yeah.
One thing, and this doesn't happen all the time, but like if you happen to like if you happen to get in like a big oak or something, and you get up to a spot where there's a branch coming off right there, like not like a small branch, but like a good branch, you make it tie the tether to that would help you out a little bit. But that's that's depending on whatever tree you're in. But
yeah, I mean that's one of them deals you can't play around with. You need
No.
your harness on and need it in a position where it's going to catch you before you fall 6 feet.
And the problem too of facing a tree and having that harness come over the back of your head or over your shoulder and facing it, if something does happen, you have a malfunction or you fall, when it does finally stop you,
you're going to
slam your face right into that tree, and it may save your life and it could kill you, but to me, read the directions, read what the safety harness manufacturer tells you to do or recommends for you to do, because they've done the tests, they've done the studies. I can remember years ago working with Bromore Products, one of the first safety harnesses there ever were. My dear friend Kim Norton, who just passed away this year, but I remember testing those safety harnesses. We tested them with fireman's dummies, and that's how we checked it to make sure what would happen if you did fall, and it would blow your mind at the things that your body would do when that happens. So do exactly what they say, and if it feels like it's inconveniencing you in the way you hunt, man, how much more is inconvenienced about not coming home? Gee.
Yeah, ain't worth it. I can't honestly,
because I fell before, and I can tell you, falling 25 feet ain't no fun, especially when you hit the ground.
Falling off a chair ain't no fun to me.
I can't remember the last time that I bow hunted out of a climber when I faced the tree. I usually just face it outward.
Yeah, it just depends on what climber you got. Some Summit makes they call it a 180, and it's designed to face the tree. So
yeah,
I think a lot of people too in climbing, especially with the climbing stand, a lot of people say, well, I'll just climb, and when I get up there, I'll hook my safety harness up. But man, if you get there 15 minutes early and just take your time, go up 3 feet, slide your safety harness up, go up 3 feet, and just take your time and be careful, you'll be fine. Man, I'll never forget years ago hunting with a friend of mine, and he had this younger guys in his teens hunting with him, and we stopped to pick him up, and he was still in the tree, and I promise you he was 30 some odd feet up in that tree in a climber, and never had a safety harness on. And when that kid got to the ground, whew, I was like, let me explain something to you, son. And he was as hard-headed as a brick wall when I was trying to talk to him. And I thought, all I could do was pray for him because he would not listen. And the next hunting season, I heard about that kid falling and busted his shoulder and broke his arm, and sad. And ain't no fun.
The other thing, it can happen to anybody.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely anybody.
None of us are invincible when it comes to that.
No, and I even, like, I don't care if you've been using a climber your whole life. It still could happen to you. You know, it's just one of those things, like, you wear your harness. And even if you try if it still seems to be in your way, I mean, it doesn't, just find a way around it.
Mm-hmm.
Got to wear it.
Yep.
But, yeah, I think, that's the only two we had to answer today. We can go ahead and wrap this one up. I think we covered everything.
It's about time for you two to go hunting.
Yeah, getting there.
I got to eat a biscuit first.
I think I'm going to go spend some time while y'all hunting today. I'm going to fly the drone around and get some stuff for the flood. It's kind of, like you said in the beginning of this podcast, it's deja vu. How many times can you fly or shoot footage of the same thing that's been happening for the past 2 years?
Mm-hmm. Don't know, but one way or the other. All right, so that'll do it for today. Hopefully next time we'll have y'all some more updates on what our
maybe we'll have killed something.
maybe we have killed something or like have nailed down. We're like some feel like a bunch of hunting bums right now. Like, y'all got anywhere that we can hunt? Cottonmouth's underwater. We gotta go somewhere. Take me to high ground.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out, though. Thank y'all for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. As always, if you have any questions, do not hesitate. You can send it to the Primos Instagram page or Facebook page or my personal page if you need to. Either one, we will get to it. As always, thank you for listening to the Speak the Language podcast.